Hello, programs, or greetings as we say. Welcome to Drunkards and Dragons, where we play D&D cool style. Okay, it's been a little while because I am a lazy bum. We dwarves are not the hardest of workers, but it's time for another episode of Room Design. How to build your rooms mo better. Now this one's a little bit overdue because we did our final night of the Underdark 2.5 weeks ago. So you're going to go into the past a little bit with this episode of Room Design. But it was a critical moment for the team, and it was also a really awesome encounter. So I wanted to make sure that we got all that fun captured for you guys to check out and scrutinize. And I think I've shown you before how I just go ahead and go through the process of building the rooms, which is number one, not worrying about the grids, and number two, just kind of going with the flow of what I happen to have laying around. Another technique is that we take plenty of photos. So got a photo from the night when we played this room. This room's called the Rift, and so we can kind of look at the photo and get a nice sense for how to rebuild it with historical accuracy. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this rebuilt. Okay, let's work on building the Rift. First of all, I've got my blank black frame. Now this takes up a lot of table space, which can make your players a little grumpy. But as I've said before, it is critical for establishing a feeling of falling and a feeling of a void. Once you're in the surface world, not so important, but in the Underdark, feeling that black drop out underneath you is really important. So we've got the beginning of the room set up over here. I'm kind of just going off my photo here. If I remember everything correctly, something to this effect. And we had a precarious bridge. See if I can recall what I'm doing here. It looks like, where does that end? Looks like it ends on one of these. Honestly, something like that. Okay, great. And then we had another piece that was elevated in similar fashion, like this, and then kind of sat right in there. So as you can see, I don't necessarily have exquisite planning. The most important thing to me is that the map serves its mechanical functions, and most of all feels precarious, feels dangerous, feels interesting. There's nothing better than when the players first come into the room. It's really interesting to see where their eyes go and what they think is going to matter, what they think is not going to matter, and they start sizing it up basically. Okay, so we had this area over here. That's all correct. Had some fortification here, and then we have guards and guard. We had a little battle cube control module. We had a battle cube here, pretty close now. We had a retrievable heal bush there. We had an extra chain here. Had a side entrance here from which Umber Hulks could emerge. Don't think we used any of those. These were all lying in wait. And a little bit of edge decoration there. Same thing there. And then we have this guy. And of course, can't forget the Frozen King. He is waiting. What's this? Oh, no, not needed. A torch just flew in from the sky. What? The skull has granted me a boon. Okay, this is the fundamentals of the room. So I think we had a couple more decorations, but really gets it. So we get a couple of placeholders here. If I remember, there was a guard there, guard here. Okay, awesome. So what are all my parts and pieces, you might ask? Okay, that's where it gets interesting. So if I can just kind of track you through the path, you can see the path starts right here and goes like this, with a little bit of other stuff going on. So the party entered right here. So this is Hankerin here. He'll be my represent the party. So they came in. Here's the first mechanic that is really useful for you dungeon masters out there is forcing march order. So I know that march order is handy, and everybody likes to think about march order because it can give you a taste for strategy, and it can force your players to think, you know, a little bit tactically before just diving into a battle, and that's always good. But if you intentionally build a space that they can only walk through in single file, it will mechanically force them to choose march order without like stopping gameplay and saying, okay, let's pick who goes first, which is never really that fun or realistic. So I have a really narrow passage right here, forces them into single file. Boop, 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 boop. You have a chance to sneak up, which is like a blind corner, always a really good introductory mechanic to a room. Give you a chance to sneak into the room. You sneak up, and here you have this mysterious wizard brooding over this altar. Now later the players realize this is where they were doing the experiments where they originally developed the Umberhulk curse, which is, if you guys are familiar with some of the other videos, our world has a curse where the evil king is turning his soldiers into Umberhulk hybrids. Yeah, crazy stuff. So this is one of the magical altars where it started, and we have a wizard here, and the players accidentally encounter him, and some missiles bounce off and stuff. Am I in there? The camera's not moving. So some missiles like bounce off him, and he turns into the Frozen King, and he's like, oh, you'll fight me in just a second. So he kind of disappears. Classic, you know, like, come get me kind of thing. So you're in the opening room. The players come in, they begin to fan out. And we have a classic trap plate right here. So you touch it, it goes like that, slams you against the ceiling, does a bunch of damage. You need to find your way around it and do some climbing. They discovered there's some strength checks to move this boulder. So they move the boulder and they start inching around because they are familiar with the Dwarven Battle Cube and they did not want to mess with it. So now they're revealed to the guards start firing. The characters are kind of over here. Some of the characters go after the freebie heal bush. Some of them are investigating what's up with this chain. Some of them are running over here thinking about jumping. Meanwhile, the bigger scene is what's awesome. So as they come around this corner away from these walls and get a view, this is a massive cavern with, where I'm standing, a big curved wall right here. So there are two curves happening. The Underdark itself is very slowly rotating. Then there's a break, which is represented right here in the terrain. A break of about 15 feet. On the other side of that, yeah, actually, no, wait, it's not there. It's right here. There's a gap right behind the Frozen King. And right here, there's a massive curved wall of stone rushing past. So what they're seeing is actually the underside of the surface world. The surface world is rotating at about 12 times the speed of the Underdark. So time is passing much faster on the surface of our planet than on the interior. Does that make sense with physics? I don't know, but it makes a hell of a cool room. So this massive wall is going... Every 6 turns, which we track on a dice. I don't know where any of the dice are. I was DMing at Grundle Warfoot's War Drums house on Sunday, so I don't know where all my stuff is. Anyways, every 6 rounds we would count down, and a hole in the wall would go rushing by. So right away the players are like, oh shit, we're gonna have to jump in that damn hole. That's gonna be exciting. So the other effect is that the surface spinning so fast is disrupting time. This is the place where time passing slow and time passing fast are meeting, and it's creating a temporal riptide. And the riptide occasionally sends out a wave every 6 rounds. Unless you are protected by a line of sight blocker like a wall, that temporal wave strips you of 1 stat point permanently. Boo! So the players are like, what? You can't strip me of this. I'm like, it just happened, dude. You just aged like 8 years when the temporal rift hit you. So it got real in here. Meanwhile, the Duergar are attacking. Then, as it always happens in my rooms, the suspense dice counts down, and the horn is sounded, and the skeleton army appears from this cavern in the side of the room. They're on a little wooden platform, and they have the void. So instantly they start gathering planks and rubble and ruin and start assembling a walkway. Now they're skeletons. They're really dumb and generally can't talk much. So they're klutzily stacking, kind of like ants trying to build a human bridge. So it's slow going. Meanwhile, the players are working forward. So they kind of investigate over here. There's some shenanigans using the chain to climb. I think some people missed some dex checks and there was some antics here. So like our rogue lost his bow. We had some armor pieces fall into the void. Like people are running out of arrows. It's getting crazy up in here. So by the time they get up here, I think they dropped these guys, killed them. They avoided the battle cube altogether. They're just terrified by that thing. Came up here. By the time they're there, the skeletons had constructed their crappy bridge. And they're all crossing. So as they're crossing, we had our group kind of huddling in this tiny little corner, and our wizard Milo's casting flaming sphere as a repellent right here. So the skeletons are like hurling their bodies into the flaming sphere. They had a war standard that heals them. They tried to put that up and it just caught on fire and the guy falls down into oblivion. Their leader of the skeletons is a new thing my players had not seen yet called a spell stealer. I think you can tell by the name this is not an NPC you want to mess with. So it takes spells from you permanently and casts them against you. When you kill it, the spell goes with it. Gnarly. There's a larger story at play, spoiler for my players, which is the Frozen King, our main enemy, actually has an item called the Soul Gem, and he's using it to gather all the spells that his agents steal. So he has this massive repository of spell power. So hopefully someday the players will be able to regain those spells. Anyway, in the meantime, youch. So they battle the skeletons. Oh my god, whoa, some people are falling off, all kinds of heavy metal, so chrome, so shiny, war boy stuff going on. This whole thing collapsed. It was insanity. They're working their way up, and then they're totally exposed on the bridge. The temporal waves are just like, boom, 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 boom. There goes bang, -1 strength forever. Bam, that's real. They come up, I start getting closer, the arrows start coming. This is a healing banner, so they knew these guys are going to be healing each other. The Frozen King's like, I'm done messing with you, I'm out. This is my cue to like leave so that you can probably die. Classic supervillain move. And he summons Kade, who is Milo's brother, to his side. Now Kade is, let me get a halfling. Kade is one of the Frozen King's top captains, who used to be a halfling, who is now one of the mightiest of the Umber Hulk hybrids. He's like a shapeshifter. He can turn into an Umber Hulk. So the Frozen King summons him, says, turn into an Umber Hulk and kill these buggers. Yes, my master. Whoa, 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 whoa. So he turns. These guys are like killed in no time. They can't even hang. This thing was destroyed. So now you've got your Umber Hulk. The players are making this crazy jump across here like, come on, let's do this. The Umber Hulk is revealed, and Milo and Erich realize this is their brother, not just some Umber Hulk. We can't just fight him and kill him. What are we going to do? Also, little did they know, but Kade, as an Umber Hulk, has like triple the stats of a normal Umber Hulk. So he's just brutal. He spell casts, he's a spell stealer, he regenerates, he can blink, all kinds of cool shit. So they don't have a chance against this guy, and they also don't want to hurt him because it's their brother. And this was one of the finest moments in our entire campaign. Is Erich Underbottom drops his weapons, runs up to his brother in Umber Hulk form, and goes for the hug. So I'm just like, whoa. I mean, even now I get tingles thinking about it. This is what D&D is all about. So I have him roll for emotional content. So he rolls a 19 for how open he gives his heart. I'm like, okay, dude, that's pretty good, but does Kade feel it? Does he feel the brotherly love, or is he too far gone? Is he Umber Hulk? So we're going to roll for Cade's brotherly response. Bam, this is my roll, Dungeon Master, nat 20. So Kade is totally overwhelmed with compassion for his brother and transforms back into his halfling form as they embrace. And as the temporal waves continue, the group moves forward, waits for the door to slide by, and they jump through into the distant future. So while they've been in the Underdark, 95 years have passed on the surface world. That is how my group finished the Underdark. So that was about probably a 4-hour room just to play this room. So I'm not sure how long that just took me to yammer about it. What are you doing? Nice. Drums. Drums in the dark. So yeah, that took me 10 minutes to go over it, but for the players, this was a massive experience. Like there was a lot of tactics involved right here, not to just get waxed. There was a lot of dread knowing they had to cross this. So there's a lot of fun lessons involved. I use my skeletons as my timer. I use my precarious terrain as my sense of peril. And I used folding, which I've often talked about. Don't just make your characters go burp or burp. Try to fold your spaces because you will get way more travel out of it. This is like 8 or 9 moves rather than 3 moves. And so you get a lot more terrain when you curl your terrain like this. Use your black felt for the void, and always have these guys laying around for precarious bridges. Everybody has fun with that stuff. Lighting it on fire. Guys are jumping into the abyss just like, no. You know, that's awesome seeing that stuff. So that's about it for the Rift, you guys. Thanks for watching. The end of the Underdark. So the next room design you're going to see is going to be Edgewood, which is where the players emerge in Weathercoat Wood, out on the eastern side of the Sword Coast. And then we get into the forest adventures and all that's about to come. So after this, we went sandbox with our games. So the players are now deciding where they're going. No more DM railroading for me. That's the privilege of the Underdark DM. On the surface, you gotta let them go sandbox. So thanks for watching, you guys. I'm gonna keep drinking beer out of my jug here. Strength, honor, and not the Underdark anymore. Check you next time. The beer of the elves tastes like elves.